Let's call this meeting to order. We're good to go?
You are good to go, sir.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, everyone. I see we're all here, so there is no one with to be excused from the meeting. That's a good thing. You have had the minutes circulated or in your agenda package. How do you want to deal with them? Are there any errors or omissions or a motion to approve the minutes of the January 12th meeting? Holly, please.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Holly moves to approve the minutes. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Post agenda items, number 4. Are there any post agenda items that anyone has? I don't. Oh, Neil, please.
Would that be that AIPA thing I sent most of the council? Function of council, yeah, but I get that on there.
Oh, there's some things to add there, maybe? Yeah.
We have to choose whether we want to send representation, right, and just kind of go over that. I think it's important.
Okay. Is that's, yeah, okay, we'll add that. Anything else? Thank you, Neil. Dan, please.
I had a question for function of council as well for a training course. Okay. I'll bring that up at function.
Yeah, we'll add that, and I think when we get to functions of council, we can add. They don't all have to be on the agenda to be considered today, from my perspective. So, a motion to approve the agenda. If there's nothing else to add, Amanda, please. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Question period or notices of motion. Any questions out there, Todd?
No questions so far. We only have one person viewing as of right now.
Okay. Anyone else in the room have questions for council? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you. Okay, just with regard to the agenda, we have delegations. Daryl Bennett coming at 10:30, and Nathan Crosby from the Brooks Bandits coming at 11. So we do have 2 delegations, but we'll move to item number 7, bylaws, right? So bylaw 2044-23, animal control, first reading. John and Devin are here. Sorry, welcome to both of you. Take the mics there. You'll be leading us through this, Devin or John? Yeah, Devin? Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Still learning. So today I come to present a proposed updated animal control bylaw. So over the last few years, myself and John have been updating bylaws within the county just to bring us a little more up to date. Upon reviewing the animal control bylaw and the urban chicken bylaw, it is proposed that we consolidate the bylaws to create one proposed animal control bylaw. This proposal has been written following meetings that between myself, planning development, John, Mark, Todd, and it was along with the consolidating the 2 bylaws, there are new definitions, terminology, reordering of sections, and the new penalty schedule. In the proposed bylaw, we recommend that livestock be prohibited in hamlets. Currently, livestock are allowed in hamlets on parcels larger than 1 acre. However, there have been complaints of orders primarily against the properties that have livestock. Also, the department believes that it is only fair that on properties where livestock currently exist in the hamlets, that those livestock can be grandfathered to remain on the condition that the property owners with livestock can maintain their current livestock until deceased or sold, and cannot replace animals or until such time as the property is sold. Also, it's recommended that livestock only be allowed on residential properties larger than 2 acres. We also recommend just with the whole lean initiative, getting rid of the $25 licensing fee that we currently have under the urban chicken bylaw, and just have the rules in place same rules in place as we have for the chicken bylaw, just eliminating that need for a license. Apologize. So elimination of the license will reduce administration process time. Additionally, only 5 licenses have been applied for and approved, 2 in Tilly, 1 in Scandia, 1 in Rolling Hills, and 1 in Castles. Upon review, the 3 licenses are valid. 1 applicant has moved out of the hamlet of Tilly, and the other has moved properties within the hamlet of Tilly, however, not applied for a new license for the new property. The department is aware that the other property owners have urban chickens, however, no complaints have been received from adjacent properties, therefore no enforcement action has been taken. It is the department's opinion that urban chickens are not a nuisance to neighboring property owners and licensing appears unnecessary. With the proposed change, the department recommends that all other rules pertain to the number of chickens that property owners are allowed to have, including how many urban chickens are housed and remain in place. We believe that the proposed changes are reasonable and fair for residents, for the intended use of the properties within hamlets, and continue to support rural lifestyle, limiting the impacts on neighboring property owners. Any questions?
Thank you for that. So this is probably a good place to be an urban chicken then. Okay. Any questions from council? I have one with regard to, and you've spoken to areas where there are livestock already, but you've had some complaints. Are they complaints like how many instances of urban or livestock do you have in the hamlets and the considered areas at this point?
So right now, I think we have, I think John can speak to the one, we have one ongoing complaint in one hamlet. I've had multiple complaints on a parcel in Tilly from different neighbors. So it's not just, one neighbor keep making the same complaints. It has been multiple neighbors making complaints about one of the properties that border them. A lot of it is just the smell upkeep of the property that comes with having the livestock. I think there's donkeys, chickens, there was a rooster at one point. Goats. So there's been a few things. And I think there's one in Rolling Hills as well in the past, so we're horses. So there's definitely been a mix of complaints in all of our hamlets regarding the livestock.
And that would be in circumstances where the complaint, the people being complained of are compliant with our bylaws, or is it a matter of non-compliance with the bylaws? I'd say they're compliant to the bylaw. So under our current bylaw, any property over 1 acre, no matter where you are, you're allowed to have livestock. So they're compliant with how many animals they have, but there's no limit on how many animals they can actually have on those parcels either, from what I understand, from the way I interpret our current bylaw. So they could theoretically have like 1 cow, 1 horse, 1 goat, 5 chickens, and then really broadening the scope. So I'll go ahead. There's other questions I might have some follow-up, but thank you for that. Go ahead.
Do we have a number on how many properties we would be affecting that already have livestock? Because people buy an acreage so that they can have animals.
We have a couple maps with acres that are currently over 1 acre, properties over 1 acre in the county in our hamlets. That I know of that have livestock, there's only 3 properties I know that would be affected. And they're all the ones that we've had current complaints about.
Just sorry to interrupt, but I would say to answer your question though too, like there is, I'm going to say quite a few, but there's a number of properties that do have livestock. I mean, I'll pick one out because it's very obvious is Castles subdivision, Castles area, because you can see it on Highway 36. You can see the livestock horses there. So I mean, that's an obvious location where there is people purposely buying that property to have horses, and that's one instance of an area that definitely has horses. And we know there's obviously other areas. So to answer your question, yeah, it definitely will affect people. They're looking at properties to put horses, I think, are the main livestock that seem to be most prominent that people want to buy property for. So without giving a specific number, but I would say that it's not just several. To help you guys out, there'd be more than that have properties with livestock on them.
Okay, thank you. Adina, please.
So is there a difference then between an acreage in a subdivision and living in a hamlet? Because I understand those acreages with horses are over your 2 acre, whereas the property we're thinking of is 1.7 acres, right? So that's not a big area to, so my question is there a difference between livestock on an acreage and livestock in a hamlet?
We've had lots of discussions about that, and it came back and forth. So and that's why we actually changed it. And I apologize, the RFD didn't reflect the change, but I did have another current meeting with Mr. Johnson there. We did change it so it prohibit livestock on parcels less than 2 acres. So that would cover a lot of the smaller acreages in the hamlets, but then still allow a lot of our subdivision acreage owners to still have their horses and other animals they may have, like goats or extra chickens.
Kelly, then Neil, and Holly, please.
Good morning. My question is your plan going forward. You will still run this on a complaint basis, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yes, so it depends on the neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we've kind of done that with all our bylaws. We allow, it's one of those things we kind of have to allow the communities to police themselves a bit.
Yeah.
Like, how are we to come kind of go in and tell people how to do things right? So
Yeah.
it'd still be the same idea.
And I think whenever we pass a bylaw, that's always the fear of people
Yeah.
is, gee, are they going to be knocking on my door now? But no, it depends on the neighborhood and how you keep your property and if there's an odor, any kind of disturbance like that, right?
Yeah, and we do have it in this bylaw too that all complaints have to be still in writing to us. That way we're not just getting random people calling, making a complaint, because we want people to back up their complaint. So if they're going to complain about the property, they got to provide us all their information, give the written concerns, and then we'll investigate that going forward.
And obviously, you're putting this forward, so this would help you do your job from your experience, correct?
Yes, and that's like I think just over like the whole change we've done of it. We've just over the years we've seen a lot of things kind of that didn't work with our current bylaw. That's kind of been a little like prohibitive or kind of getting our way a little bit. Like example, the penalty section. So that's why this bylaw came.
And I like that we're able to combine 2 into 1. That's always, I mean, we had the chicken bylaw, and so this is good that they're coming together.
Yes, it makes it easier for us for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Neil?
That was my question, and great answer.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. I'm still confused about a couple of pieces here. I've read it a couple of times, so I'm not clear. In a hamlet, you can't have animals if you're over 2 acres, or you can have animals over 2 acres?
So originally, so I do have an original copy. I don't think this one, just give me 1 second, I apologize. So in the current version that is in council today is, I did do a section where it prohibited them in hamlets, and then we had another discussion. We're like, well, maybe we'll just go residential parcels, less than 2 acres can't have them. But looking at the maps, we don't have, from my knowledge, I don't think there's any acreages in hamlets more than 2 acres. So if someone did happen to have an acreage or a property over 2 acres, then they would be allowed to have livestock in hamlets. But I don't.
In a hamlet, you can still have it. Okay.
Yeah.
The one piece that you haven't looked at is under the CRA rules, bees are considered livestock. So you're telling Scandia honey they can't have bees anymore. That's a problem.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that one, just because it would be under our definition, right? We don't have bees listed as a
right, but under
livestock.
But they are. If you're a farm,
Yeah.
bees are your livestock.
I can most definitely take a look into that one. We can always talk about exemptions, right? So, and it's going to come down to how we define in our definitions livestock. So if bees wouldn't be defined in our livestock, then they wouldn't pertain or it wouldn't fall into that section of the bylaw anyhow. But just for the interest of it, I could definitely take a look into that.
And what is it with chickens too? I read the chicken thing and I'm left confused as well. Who can have chickens and who can't have chickens? Is it only over 2 acres, even in a hamlet, you can have chickens or places over 2 acres?
No, everyone can have up to 4 chickens, and for the smaller parcels. Sorry.
Okay.
So it's following the same idea of the urban chicken bylaw that we currently have, just combining the two and making it less restrictive for licensing and stuff like that. But yeah, the whole idea is as long as you're following the rules that we have in place for the chickens, like having a coop, water, all that, making sure it's not being a nuisance to neighboring properties, and we're allowing the chickens.
Okay, because my one concern here is if we're going to limit what people can do with their large parcels inside a hamlet, like, I mean, you can be, if look at castles, it's or Rainier, they might be hamlets, but there really is no residential component to it. It's just almost a group of acreages.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me they can't have livestock, you are then decreasing their property values.
Yeah.
And we can't be doing that.
I mean, and this is kind of really like the biggest part of it is kind of what we want to get direction from council on that part of it. Just because it hasn't allowed, we do have complaints, but I think really we do need a little bit of direction on how council wants to proceed with livestock in hamlets and some of the smaller acreages. And then as well as we're going to need to get public feedback on that as well. So we do plan on doing a 30-day public consultation on this bylaw where that information will be given out and the public will read the bylaw and give back their feedback.
Okay, thank you. Dan, please.
A lot of good questions already been answered. The only other thing I noted was in the definitions under specified residential areas, gets a little confusing at the end where it says also excluded. I think is left over from the old definition where there was exclusions listed, but there's not really any listed this time. So it's kind of a little confusing when you see the also excluded and you're trying to figure out what's going on there. It's just a tiny minor nitpicky thing that I want to get fixed.
I'll definitely take a look into that. Thank you.
Okay, I thank you. But I have another question, and like I guess I asked it before, but I didn't take notes. So how many properties would you have at this point that will be grandfathered if this comes into place?
I wish I had an exact answer for that. I just know of the 3 properties I know that have been given complaints. We've seen properties with livestock, like John said, like we got horses and castles, for example. So that might be something we'd have to maybe see a development can help us answer. I'm not sure if they couldn't though.
I guess my concern is that we take, and I think Holly maybe and others have voiced some concern around this, that we take action here that goes across the board. I would really like to understand what the scope of the grandfathering situation is before and I guess a couple of questions. That is one. And then we've only had the 3 complaints, and if they're all compliant, then that's worth considering for sure. But if any of those were out of compliance, that's just a matter of people following the guidelines that are in place. I hate to put restrictions on people that don't need to be there. But a question with regard to our process this morning, if we pass first reading, I mean, we're better off to have things in place before we pass first reading, or there can be lots of adjustments made after that? Okay. Because I think, and I appreciate your comments that you're looking for the direction of council. Certainly that's the one thing that I don't want to infringe on people's property rights or ability to do things that don't impact other people. And I wonder if we need to look at this and say, put some further restrictions on, because I can appreciate that if you've got 5 or 6 different species of livestock in a confined space, that's a problem, but maybe 1 or 2 might be more appropriate. You know, that doesn't have the impact, but I would like to hear or know kind of where we think the impact is with regard to grandfathering, so we know the impact of the bylaw considerations that we have. Further questions? Thanks. Lynette and then Holly.
I just had a little issue with the grandfathering too, because basically the way I understood it was that if you have your 3 goats and one's black and white and one's brown and one's white. The white one dies, you're not supposed to replace it, but if you go get another white goat, nobody's going to know.
That would be a tough part for us to deal with, and it is a possibility that has come up discussion. And so I just wanted to come back to Mr. Dirksen really quick. So, like, even if, and I think it comes back to discussion, we do the public feedback too, because we do have the table on kind of where we're looking at on how many animals can be on any parcel anyhow, and then by the land size. So we can always adjust that to fit some of the smaller parcels as well, like to allow like one horse or something, or a goat type deal. Just kind of, we definitely play around with the scheduling. So.
You, Holly, please.
I'm just looking at your animal allowances in Schedule A. I don't really think that bison would be a safe animal to have in a residential parcel. And elk too, I'm kind of wondering why those two animals would be included in residential parcels, livestock.
In complete full disclosure, we might have snagged this from another neighboring county bylaw. So it's stuff that can be released. We could definitely look at why they have that in there, but we just like the way that scheduling worked out when I was working with that with development, but it's kind of where that came from.
Okay. Any other questions? So, Matt, Kelly, do you have a question? Or okay, Matt, just with regard to process here, and I should know this, I'm sure, but sometimes it would. But what's the process here if we pass first reading in terms of addressing some of the concerns that have been raised by council?
Yeah, so Devin's taken some notes this morning, heard some of the concerns about the different livestock, the grandfathering in, how that's going to function. Council could give first reading to the bylaw, and then it would be kicked out to the public to solicit their feedback. That feedback comes in over whatever period of time is appropriate. And once, the feedback starts slowing down, you'll see John and Devin back here with a summary of that feedback. You'll see an updated bylaw come back for second reading. At that point, if it's not quite right and we want to go back to the public, we kick it back out and give a period of time and receive it again for third before it's actually in place and effective.
Okay. Just in response to that, I'm feeling like when we put something out to public, I want it to be that we've put scrutiny to it, that we have something out there that we think is pretty good, but like I don't want people to have to raise concerns about something that we should have thought of, and because of some of the questions that aren't complete, I would prefer to see this go back for a little more work, so that when we go out with first reading to public, that it's that we've considered some of the and removed the pitfalls that we already see there. And I'm not saying that any of these are, but what I'm sounding to me like there's some questions that need to be answered before we pass first reading. Is that a reasonable approach to this, and that we reconsider it with a little more work? Matt.
Yeah, so that's fair. I would ask council then to state specifically what you would like John and Devin to edit and come back. What I've heard is we'd like clarity on the grandfathering, how that'll work. There's the bison and the elk. The bees aren't included in the definition of livestock. Our definition stands. We don't give any credence to CRA's definition of livestock. Whatever council says livestock are in the bylaw is what we consider livestock for Devin and John to then go enforce against. So where are we at? And then a little bit of wordsmithing in the definition area. Have I missed anything?
And I'm not sure if it's reasonable, but the scope of the grandfathering impact, like how many properties would be grandfathered. I don't know if you have the information or could compile it, but to me that makes a difference, because if we're grandfathering a lot of properties, that tells me, and we haven't had a lot of complaints, that tells me there's some activity out there that we, unbeknownst to us, could be limiting and reducing property values. And I'm not discounting the validity of the concern here, but I just think that it would be good if it's reasonable to have some estimate of the scope of the impact. Adina, please.
I just wanted to say, you might not have had a lot of complaints in GEM, but there has been a lot of complaints in Division 2. A lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't discount that. Neil, please.
What about dogs, cats? Are they all in the livestock, or is that different? Somebody wants to run 10 dogs that are all over. They're not even mentioned in this.
They're mentioned in find a section. We do limit to 4 household pets, and again, that would be on a complaint basis. So I mean, if someone's got 5 dogs and their neighbors aren't bothered by it, then we're not going to go and have them get rid of 1 dog. But just bear with me, sorry. So it's under section 4, commercial kennel. No person shall keep or have more than 4 dogs over the age of 6 months. And sorry, we don't mention cats because we don't really enforce too much on cats, but we do limit the number of dogs.
Okay. Mark, you had some comments?
Yeah, just in response, and this is going to be a ballpark answer, but I'm estimating between 10 and 15 properties across all of our hamlets. So there's a couple of them up in Patricia, 3 of them, I believe. Couple in Tilly, 1 for sure, but I believe there's 2. Rolling Hills, there's 1 to 2 properties that have or have had livestock on them. Scandia, I don't recall any. Rainier, looking at 2 to 3 maybe more. Not certain myself. And Castles, you're probably in that 3 to 4 range as well. So 10, 15 properties. Just thinking that council also has the ability to say which hamlets could have livestock versus which ones would not. So looking at your hamlet versus growth hamlet, you might want to give consideration of how it relates to other documents that you're putting in place and what makes sense for what you're planning to have happen in them. Other than that, I think everything's fairly well reasoned. But between this, there have been those ongoing concerns. I think if you had a donkey versus a horse, you're going to get more noise out of one versus the other. And I think those are some of the challenges that the guys are really dealing with there's the livestock manure that comes about, so the odor, and you have the noises coming out of various different types of livestock as well. And to remind council, you've also dealt with livestock in multi-lot residential subdivisions, which are more rural than your hamlets. So keep in mind those sorts of things, and that's where the public engagement, Matt's indicated we'd like some more direction from you if this isn't concrete enough to get past first reading, for these guys to help work this out, because I too have to help them, and we've got other team members present that have been involved as well, trying to work with land use bylaw, animals, and all of this. But as for the chicken stuff, like I don't think the licensing's warranted, and nuisance based is how things work. So the dog business, we know people have litters of pups. Hopefully they're getting rid of them in a timely basis so that they don't find themselves in situations. But I live in the city of Brooks, and I can tell you that not everybody's compliant in the city of Brooks, and until somebody complains about it, nothing changes. Thank you.
Kelly, please.
So I'm of a different thought pattern, Reeve Dirksen. I would like to move this forward. I would like to support staff in the work that they have provided us and give it first reading and bring it back with the concerns that you've heard. That way it's not a dead issue, and I know you have ongoing files, so this will help move the process forward. So I would like to make a motion to approve first reading.
Option 1?
Option 1.
Okay, I accept that. I will reiterate my concern. It's at a high level. It's not about the specifics about this necessarily. My larger concern is that when we put things out to public, that we are prepared, that we've done our due diligence, and that we have have the dynamic of reasonable information dealt with ahead of time. And so we don't have the proverbial egg on our face when it goes public. I definitely support the work that you do too, even if it's from an urban chicken, right? So, yeah. Go ahead, Holly.
I'm in line with Arno, but I want to give a few things because you asked for specifics. Under the definition of livestock, it says all other animals that are kept for agricultural purposes. So bees are kept. It needs to exclude bees. If you're going to say that, bees need to be excluded. Where it talks about responsible as animal owners, because it says in number 6D and E that your animals can't bite a bird, reptile, amphibian, or mammal and cause a serious wound or cause a death of. If you have a cat to catch mice, it's on your own property. I don't see an exclusion for that. I mean, that's why you have cats, is to hunt mice often. So I think it needs to be excluded. I'm not sure if I'm correct on that or not. And then I'm wondering where you have your maximum number of animals, if we need to include then, listening to the concerns from Tilly, how many classes of animals you can have, like if there needs to be some clarification on that. So you can't have, one cow, one pig, one horse, one donkey, on a 3-acre piece or whatever, if that would help. I didn't with clarification.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you for the good work you're doing, and we look forward to the public response and appreciate the work that you do. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, we are at 10:30, which we'll move to item number 8.1. Daryl Bennett is coming to us virtually. Good morning, Daryl. I think what we'll do is have introductions first around the room here. Welcome to our meeting. Just for information, we have another delegation at 11 o'clock. So I'm going to suggest that first of all we'll have introductions, and then that we try to go for about 15 minutes of presentation if that's workable for you, and then questions and answers after that. But welcome to our meeting, Daryl, and I'll just have us go around the room and introduce ourselves. I'm Arno Dirksen, Reeve of the County from Division 9 in the GEM area. So Neil, go ahead, please.
Neil Johnson, Division 10, Round Brooks.
Amanda Philpott, Division 8, Duchess.
Good morning, Ellen Unruh, and I represent the division around the village of Rosemary.
Good morning, Greg Screever, Division 5, Castles and Lake Newell Resort.
Good morning, I'm Kelly Chrisman, and I'm from the northwest side of the county.
Good morning, Daryl. Matt Fensky, nice to see you. Thanks for taking time out of your day for us.
Hi, Daryl. Holly Johnson, Rainier Scandia, Bow City, Division 4.
Good morning, Adina Scandrip, Division 2, Tilly area.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Dan Short from Division 1, Rolling Hills.
Lynette Kopp, Division 3, Patricia Millicent area. Good morning.
You able to hear me?
Planning and Development Assistant.
Good morning, Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
Good morning, Sandra Stanway, Brooks Bulletin Newspaper.
Those are our introductions for the people around the table here. Daryl, welcome. We have several staff members also participating in the meeting in the background, but welcome. We can hear you. Go ahead. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Well, thank you for the invitation. My name is Daryl Bennett. I'm a farmer from the Tabor area. I'm a director of the Alberta Surface Rights Federation. I'm also a director of the Action Surface Rights Association, and Holly's husband is a director of that association as well. And I represent landowners at the Surface Rights Board, now the Land Property Rights Tribunal on oil and gas matters, with the AUC on wind, solar, and power lines, at the Alberta Energy Regulator and at the Canadian Energy Regulator. And I've been doing this probably since 2008, more specifically on the renewable energy projects that I'm here to speak to today. I've dealt with probably 20 solar projects and 25 windmill projects, representing landowners that are both for and against. So I understand that you have a slide or my PowerPoint presentation. I am going to move my computer to that, but I believe your staff is going to put that up on the screen. So I won't be able to see you, but I will be able to hear you. And I'll just briefly go over a summary of these slides. As we look at the first slide, you can see there's a lot of issues, and there's a big energy transition going on globally. It's happening in Canada, it's happening in Alberta, and there's a lot of entities adjusting their rules and policies to accommodate renewable energy projects.
Sorry, Daryl, just 1 second. We don't have your presentation. Had you forwarded that to us, Daryl?
Yeah, Ariana said that they'd be able to, or I think Ariana said they'd be able to put it up.
Okay, we do have it, Daryl. They're finding it. It'll get up here. I think you can continue, and it'll come up for us. And council has your presentation in front of them as well. Thank you.
Okay. So in Alberta, these projects are being connected to the electrical grid in 2 different ways. I'm looking at slide 2. Some of them are connecting directly to transmission lines, and these are the larger projects, usually in the hundreds of megawatts. They require their own substation and often their own connecting transmission line. Some may require new major transmission lines to be built. Some are distribution connected. That would be to your Fortis or Equus lines. And those projects can sometimes be up to 60 megawatts, and sometimes they don't require their own substation. So the Alberta Electric System Operator is heavily involved. They're trying to forecast Alberta's power needs, the transmission line requirements, and they're promoting geographical stability of the grid, so generation isn't located just in one area of the province. So if we go to slide 3, these are issues that acreage owners or opposing landowners that live near these projects might raise. Noise levels, of course, and there are provincial regulations on how loud these projects can be. With solar projects, some are concerned about glare and glint. Both wind and solar have a viewscape where solar panels can be high, windmills are much higher, and it affects the view. A lot of the landowners have bought their dream property out in the country and for the view, and all of a sudden there might be a wind turbine or solar project nearby, and they tend to get a little upset. Some are worried about property devaluation, not so much a concern for farmland, but it can be for acreages. And then, of course, they have concerns about weeds and dust, especially during construction. There's a fire safety issue with solar projects because you can't shut the panels off, and so generally the fire department doesn't go inside the project. They just let it burn out, but they set up a perimeter and make sure the fire doesn't spread. And then there's wildlife with wind projects. It's more related to birds and bats. With solar projects, it's more the lake effect, which apparently has been disproven. It doesn't occur that much in Alberta, where it might in California, where they have deserts. So if we move to slide 4, this is important to landowners. There's 3 different types of operator out there. You've got the aggregators that are trying to aggregate the land for a project, then they sell it to a developer. Sometimes developers will sign up their own landowners. They'll develop it, take it to the AUC, meet all the regulatory requirements. And then you have the operators, and these are usually the bigger guys. They usually have better contracts. They're not trying to sell it to someone else, so they're willing to treat the landowners a little bit better. The AUC hearing process, I won't go over that in detail. That just explains what a county can expect. And I will note, I just came out of the Foothills solar hearing, and the AUC generally doesn't see municipalities coming in before them. Many municipalities think that it's pointless, that the 619 paramountcy provisions of the Municipal Government Act override anything they say. That's not entirely true. The panel chair in the last hearing thanked the Foothills County for showing up and encouraged counties to show up. They can't deal with your issues if they don't know about them. So regarding mitigation at the AUC, generally it's a public interest equation. They cannot compensate landowners who are suffering from wind turbines or solar. They don't compensate for lost property value or lost aerial spraying opportunities. Generally, there's going to be advantages and disadvantages. And if the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, they're going to approve the license. But they do ask the operator a lot of times to commit to reduce or mitigate impacts on neighboring landowners. For solar projects, they may construct screening to reduce the visual impact, test water wells that might be impacted. A lot of times, wind and solar companies will set up community-based funding projects to eliminate opposition and to try to help the community. And then there's the county setbacks, where you as a county do have the right to impose some setbacks. The AUC might override them in some circumstances, but a lot of the operators come in, respect the county setbacks. So it's important to have good setbacks to your roads and to your residences. So I'm sure you're all aware some municipal concerns that have been arising lately. Many municipalities welcome the property tax revenue to offset the lost oil and gas property taxes from the last few years. However, there were a couple resolutions passed at the RMA. One was counties are very concerned based on their experience with oil and gas with the Orphan Well Association and companies going bankrupt and not being able to properly reclaim oil and gas facilities. There is an Orphan Well Association for oil and gas. There is none for renewable energy projects. And therefore, it's kind of come out in these hearings that ultimately it's the landowner that would be left responsible if the operator went bankrupt. And obviously, landowners not going to be able to fund reclamation. So many of the municipalities are concerned about their responsibilities and liabilities. There may be safety hazards. Do the nav lights on the wind turbines stay on? Are the fences maintained? Are the grass mowed on solar projects? Is there a fire risk? Is there vandalism occurring? Those type of situations. So municipalities have been asking the province to impose an adequate reclamation security. So far, that has not happened. The AUC has specifically said they have no jurisdiction over that issue or cannot do it. So we're going to test that with the Foothills Solar, where it's directly in their bylaw that they can. And we're arguing that there's not a paramountcy issue. If the county can and the AUC can't, the AUC shouldn't be trumping the county. We expect a decision on that in about 90 days. Another resolution is many of the counties are getting concerned about, especially solar projects, taking up a lot of valuable agricultural land. Especially here in southern Alberta, where they're trying to expand irrigation. There's a conflict on, you're going to take the good dry land areas and put water on, but if solar projects are taking thousands of acres, what's got the priority? Then there was a South Agricultural Services Board resolution. They're starting to become concerned about some of the solar projects because some of the federal regulations on what chemicals can be used are coming into play. In Alberta, strychnine has now been restricted, and we're seeing a lot of gopher problems in these solar projects. And obviously, the operator doesn't want people shooting at those gophers with 22 rifles when there's solar projects around. So it's kind of hard to control the gophers, and then they spread. So as I mentioned, the AUC does have paramountcy over some provisions, but they do encourage municipalities to show up and address their concerns. I'll skip the current solar rates. Well, actually, I'll just make a brief comment. When these guys are coming in and offering landowners $600 an acre annually on grass, and from $700 to I'm dealing with one right now that's $1,700 per acre annually. Generally, they run around $700, $800. That's very attractive to landowners. And based on property rights, landowners should have the right to do within reason the things they want with their own property, and that's very attractive. But the landowners, in response to that attractive compensation, have to realize there's two major liabilities with renewable projects in Alberta. As I mentioned, first, there isn't an Orphan Well Association to take care of reclamation if a company goes bankrupt. Two, renewable energy projects are not exempt like the oil and gas wells are in the Municipal Government Act, and landowners can be held liable for unpaid property taxes. Whether you as a county would do that would be up to you to decide. It might not be wise if the company's gone bankrupt, property taxes are owing, the landowner has a responsibility to reclaim. If you take that over, that responsibility may then become yours. So I don't know how much of a concern this would be, but landowners can be on the hook for these unpaid property taxes. And finally, renewable energy projects are outside the jurisdiction of the Surface Rights Board, now the Land Property Rights Tribunal. With oil and gas, if the company doesn't pay you, you can apply to the government and they will pay you. That won't happen with renewable energy projects. Slide 10, I'll just briefly mention. These projects are not under the provisions of the Land Agents Act, like oil and gas are. And so there's no standardized contract. A lot of times the proponent can't answer the questions. It's a bit of the Wild West. There's some good contracts out there. There's some horrible contracts out there. So that's where I come in many times. I've signed up some big solar projects and some big wind projects. And I take issue with some of the terms in the leases, and we come in and try and fix them. So just briefly, some of the issues we have seen, and I personally experienced, banks refusing to mortgage lands if they have a renewable energy project on them for a number of reasons. The default clause is very poor. Most of these landowners, when they sign this contract, they're not going to get out of it. In fact, why would the contract expires? Then they may be liable for reclamation, for property taxes. So you're not going to default the agreement that protects you. Another problem is many option periods are long. They do not expire. And once a landowner signs it, they can't get out of it until the company terminates it. In addition, many of the lease terms are very long, and some have an everlasting clause. So they renew for 25 years, but that renew clause also renews in the next lease, so it never expires until the operator cancels the lease. One thing that I insist upon is many contracts offer a 1% to 2% inflation increase. These are not governed by the Surface Rights Act. You don't get a review every 5 years and the ability to go in front of the Surface Rights Board. So many of them just have an inflation clause varying from 1% to 2%. I insist upon a CPI inflator. I think some of my landowners are now happy with that based on what inflation or interest rates have done with inflation. The contracts are written on behalf of the operator. They put the onus on the landowner to do a number of things that the landowner is not going to remember and who reads their surface leases. So I try to change that onus. Some contracts require the operator's consent before you can sell or mortgage your land. Obviously, if they've put millions of dollars onto your land and infrastructure, they want some say in who the next owner may be. There's indemnification clauses you need to be worried about. A couple other nitpicky ones there. As we move on to slide 13, I'll just highlight the big ones here. Some solar contracts allow the operator to subdivide their leased area out of your land. Many of them allow access to all of your lands, maybe not even the leased portion, but they just for access. And sometimes they don't offer compensation. Many contracts allow the operator to sublet or sublease the land, especially for wind projects. That becomes a problem because they have collector lines and access roads, and the turbine might be on somebody's land. They're getting good revenue. The collector lines and roads might be on someone else's and they're not getting good revenue, and they'll sell that to another company and you have no say to object to that. Some contracts allow them to take the gravel off your land without payment. So there's just a few suggestions I'll briefly cover, and then we can see if you have any questions. You obviously want construction equipment to be cleaned. A lot of the cranes are operating all over the province. You don't want to introduce weeds and crop disease. They should pay for baseline soil and weed studies at the beginning that you can then later use during reclamation. For solar projects, we strongly encourage operators to take land based on the 40-acre LSD, because the landowner doesn't want to be left with little small oddly shaped parcels that they have to farm around the panels. There's just a couple tips there for landowners to make sure they're being paid appropriately and on time. One of the big things is the number 6 on page 15. You want to make sure the lender's clause is not unfavorable to the landowners, and all of them are. They need to be changed. Basically, it says if the operator screws up, the lender can come in and take things over if they want, but they can change any of the provisions in the surface lease in doing so. So obviously that's not something a landowner is going to want to see. The reclamation term payment needs to be sufficient. So what happens is you come to the end of life, it needs to be reclaimed. A lot of them say, well, we might pay you $5 to $10 an acre. We may pay you crop damage if something occurs. One of the issues with wind turbines are a lot of these contracts are written such that they only have to pay for the footprint. And a turbine base might only be 1/10 of an acre, and they may only have to pay $450 an acre. So they'd have to pay $45 per year for that turbine base, or they can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to jackhammer the cement out. I contend that I know what the company's going to do. They're just going to pay that $45 per year for eternity and avoid reclaiming. There are reclamation criteria and reclamation requirements, but so far I haven't seen that they're actually required to do it in a specific timeline. And that's actually my point on number 9 on page 16. The big one is the assignment clause. So what we've seen from oil and gas is big companies dump their projects onto smaller companies, and they dump them onto smaller companies until finally the last man standing doesn't have the resources to reclaim. Most of these assignment clauses in the renewable leases allow them to assign it to whoever they want, and then they bear no future liability. And that just came out in our recent Foothills Solar hearing, where the operator, Elemental, did state that that is the case, that once they assign it. You need to realize that most of these projects, because of accelerated tax write-offs and an accelerated depreciation schedule, they have a quick ROI. And they make a lot of their money to begin with. In some cases, some are saying they make more money off of selling the green credits than they do from the electricity. And so they recover their money, and then they may sell it to someone else to run. And as they have to refurbish, or if there's problems, at some point they may want to offload it onto someone so they don't have to reclaim. And so I insist in the contracts, the landowner has to have some say, or they can't assign it to anybody that doesn't have sufficient resources to comply with the reclamation requirements. There's some insurance things that they should be dealing with. So that's a quick summary. Normally I go into a lot more detail with landowners, but in the interest of time and assuming that you might have some questions, that's the presentation that I have for you today.
Thank you for that, Daryl. That's a good presentation. Appreciate your perspective. And just to reiterate, or just to confirm what you've said, you have had some. You've worked with clients who have signed agreements that address the concerns that you've raised adequately.
Yes. Whether you can say adequately, it's a legal contract, and the operator is going to have better lawyers than my landowners. So we try to do the best that we can, realizing there's still some problems. I would prefer to have an orphan well association. I think the renewable energy companies should really push for an orphan well association to take care of things if something happens. I think that would resolve a lot of county concerns. I don't want it under the purview of the Surface Rights Act, because then they could expropriate land and take private land, and I don't think that would be appropriate for solar and wind projects. So, but yes, we have put provisions in. I've signed contracts where right now the reclamation criteria is you have to remove everything to a depth of 1.2 meters. I've signed contracts where they've agreed to remove all of the solar pilings to the depth of 8 meters because it's right near a town, and it's understood that residences will likely be built on that area as the town expands. So they committed to remove everything. And I've put in clauses for assignment that they need landowner approval. So yeah, we try to fix it. Whether those clauses will stand up to legal review later on remains to be seen, especially if the company goes bankrupt. A lot of it becomes meaningless.
Which is where the concept of the Orphan Well Association would hopefully be well enough resourced to deal with at least some of those, right?
Yes, and we've also asked the government to put a MGA exemption on property taxes for the renewable projects like they have for oil and gas. We have not yet responded on that area as well. Whether that's in the favor of a county is debatable, but it certainly would be in favor of the landowner.
Great, thanks, Daryl. Questions? Neil has a question. Go ahead, Neil.
How, in your opinion, how far into this solar transition are we just beginning, or how many of these are there going to be?
There's going to be lots. In the Foothills County situation, The operator wanted to put it into an area that the bylaw prohibited solar development. It was very good agricultural land. The director of planning said there were a number of other operators circling, and based on the precedent the AUC was going to set on whether they would allow it, there were probably another 3 or 4 that were going to apply. I've probably got 7 or 8 counties like you guys that have asked me to come in and make a presentation or talk to them or represent them. There's a lot of solar projects, probably not as many wind, but I'm dealing with a lot of wind projects right now as well. So there's a lot of them coming. In the future, whether mini nuclear or fusion would make them obsolete, that's been my concern, that we don't know what the future holds. And at some point, who knows what will happen. These operators claim that in 25 years, the recycling technology will be available. Right now, we can't recycle the panels, we can't recycle the turbine blades and bases. And they claim that that'll be resolved in the future, but that's speculative. We don't know.
Thank you. Any other questions? Lynette, go ahead, please.
You deal a lot in the south with more of the wind stuff. Are you looking at end of life expectancy on some of those turbines and stuff already? Like, and dealing with some reclamation?
I believe TransAlta reclaimed a project down in the Pincher Creek area. They took some of their lattice tower turbines down and put some new ones in. I think they're finding that the lifespan is a little longer than they thought it would be. I know they have had some problems down in the States, and they've put turbine blades in landfills. So at this point in time, we don't know how to recycle those turbine blades, but they are changing the structure and the components. But I've dealt a lot with solar projects as well in southern Alberta. And so, yeah, there's a lot of them coming.
Thank you. Kelly, question?
Thank you for your information this morning. My question is more about the Federation. Are you an available resource for our ratepayers? And are you on a contract basis? How does that work, Mr. Bennett?
So the Federation is kind of a provincial organization. It's supposed to be a provincial organization. It's older members, and due to COVID, it hasn't functioned as well as it should have. Action Surface Rights, which is the local association in southern Alberta, is quite a bit more active. We intervened at the Supreme Court for Redwater. So we do offer information. We offer resources. Sometimes we fundraise for lawyers to help defend legal challenges, because a lot of times, a landowner can't afford a $30,000, $40,000 legal bill. And so we'll try to help in that area. We take landmark cases, but we don't offer contract services. I'm an individual person. I have a partner. We have a company. So it's my Landman Group, my company, that represents the landowners that I'm dealing with. It's not the Federation. But we have a website, and we have landowners send in questions all the time. And so usually I just answer those questions to the best of my ability. We have access to different law firms that we can recommend. So we can provide a lot of information. Sometimes we don't intervene directly.
Thank you. Any other questions? We've got a couple of minutes yet if there are further questions. Seeing none, thank you for your presentation this morning, Daryl. Appreciate you joining us via Zoom and the work that you've done on this. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Bye now.
Bye.
I'm going to suggest to council that we take a 3 to 5 minute break and resume with Mr. Crosby at just after 10 o'clock. I think we're a little over time, but we'll call this meeting back to order, please. We're moving to item number 8.2. Brooks Bandits, Mr. Nathan Crosby is joining us here. Do you want to take a seat up by the microphone here, Nathan? Welcome to our meeting. Thanks for coming in this morning. Yeah, either one, I think, right? And we'll start with introductions, and then We'll ask you for your presentation. So I'm Arno Dirksen, Reeve of the County and Division 1, the gem area. So Neil, go ahead, please. Division 9, that's right.
Future Division 1.
Had to make sure everybody's paying attention, and it worked.
I'm Neil Johnson, Division, what would I be? Division 10 around Brooks.
Morning, Amanda Philpott, Division 8, Duchess.
Good morning, Ellen Unruh, and I represented Division 7 around the village of Rosemary.
Greg Screever, Division 5, Lake Newell Resort and Castles.
Morning, Nathan. Kelly Chrisman, the northwest side of the county around Bazzano.
Nice to see you again, Nathan. Welcome. Matt Pensky, County Administrator.
Good morning, Holly Johnson, Division 4, Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Good morning, Adina Scandrup, Division 2 around the hamlet of Tilly.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Dan Short from Division 1, the real Division 1.
I'm Division 3, Patricia Milson area. My name's Lynette Kopp. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Cheryl Page, Planning and Development Assistant.
Good morning, Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
Welcome, Nathan.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Welcome. I'm Nathan Crosby, the business manager for the Bandits, and nice to meet all of you. Some of you have met before and coming here, and thanks to Ariana for getting this set up for me, so I appreciate that. And yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. You've got a presentation for us. Go ahead.
Great. So, as you may have heard, the Brooks Bandits have expressed interest in bidding on either the 2024 or 2025 Centennial Cup. That is Canada's National Junior A Championship, which we've previously hosted in 2019. Hockey Canada deemed the 2019 event one of the most successful ever. Not only did the team win it all, which was a nice way to end it, but also left a legacy fund for the community and was a great national event for the city and the region. If the Bandits are to win this bid, Hockey Canada is going to award two teams this year the hosting rights. So 2024 and 2025 will both be announced this year. One change, the biggest change, and this is very significant from 2019, if you remember, that was a 5-team tournament, us and then 4 teams from around Canada. Now it's expanded to 10 teams. So us and 9 other representatives from the leagues across Canada. So it's going to look a little different. More games, 25 total games. We had 13 games in 2019 when we hosted. All games will be played at the Centennial Regional Arena. Also the Sparrow Arena will be used for teams to access for practice. This is guidelines sent out by Hockey Canada that there must be a second sheet of ice for teams to practice on. And we have an agreement with the city of Brooks to allow us to use to keep the ice in at the Sparrow Arena during this event. And then, of course, the final game would be broadcast on TSN. And once again, we'd have Brooks and our county on the national stage. So this means with 9 teams coming, that's 5 extra teams coming compared to 2019, our expenses for this event, if we were to host, would significantly be raised as we have to get all the teams here, take care of the transportation, flights, busing, food, hotels. But with that being said, a great chance for our economy here to double the hotels, double the food, double the transportation, team services costs, and that's just with the teams. Then additionally fans, team staff, officials, league representatives all descending to Brooks could have a major economic impact for the region. So, to make a long story short, the Bandits are looking to partner with the County of Newell on hosting this event, just like we did in 2019. We received a $25,000 grant from the county in 2019, and an additional, this was with the agreement with the city of Brooks as well, an additional $50,000 if the event didn't break even, which wasn't the case, to strengthen our bid and show to Hockey Canada that we are serious, and our local governments are here to support us. We are asking for double what we received in 2019 due to there being double the teams coming. So that would be $50,000 from the county. And then one final note, we are bidding against 3 other teams in Alberta for this event: Okotoks, Black Falls, and Bonnyville. And so we have some very stiff competition. But as we've shown, we have the team on the ice that certainly will help our cause, that is having another strong season. And we've also shown that our region has the volunteers, the sponsorship, the fan support, local government support, that we can definitely make this work again. That's my presentation.
Thank you for that. I'm sure there are questions, which I'll welcome. Just one question. We have the capacity in the city to host in terms of bed spaces, that kind of thing? That's
Yes, so we've already gotten letters of support from the hotels in town.
Yeah.
Hockey Canada required 300 rooms guaranteed.
Yeah, I read that somewhere, and we've got that. Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks. Questions? Neil?
Yeah, I totally support the Bandits and all that goes on. You're good ambassadors, which we come across wherever we travel. What kind of shape is the team in, like financials? Do you need the money?
So, no surprise, COVID certainly affected our financials. Last year was a good year on the ice for the team, with winning the Alberta, the AJHL Championship and the Centennial Cup at the end of the year. We were still dealing last year with restrictions due to COVID that hurt revenues, whether it was 50% attendance or no food or drink in the arena. So we did have a deficit last season, so we are still coming out of that, recovering. The season's going well this year without any of those restrictions, which has been a good step forward. But we're still working our way back to pre-COVID.
Thank you. Kelly, please.
Can you help me understand the organization? Is it privately owned? Is it society? I know there's a board of directors. I was able to source those. I just need to understand the corporate situation, because my theory here is, or my thinking is, when we receive applications for funding from community, we require financial statements. And so help me, please.
Sure. So we are a community-owned, not-for-profit organization. We do have a board of directors, yes. They're all volunteer. They meet once a month with our staff. But we pay for all of our expenditures through fundraising. So that's from our gate, season tickets, liquor sales, 50/50, and then other fundraising initiatives that we have to fundraise money to pay the bills.
Great. So you're not the Calgary Flames, where it's okay. Thank you. I just needed to be clear on that. Another question I have is, I sourced some information from the city, and at the last event, it stated that you netted a profit of $350,000. and it detailed how that money was spent or directed. 25,000 was for future event hosting. So will that 25,000 go towards this as well? And if so, why doesn't it show in the expenditure income line?
Sorry to cut you off. Future events, the $25,000, that is for a deposit that we have to put on when we put in our bid.
Submit a bid, okay. And then the minor hockey, 35,000 went to minor hockey. And if my memory serves me, you included all of the County of Newell minor hockey organizations in that grant fund, didn't you? Just
Correct, yeah. At the beginning of the 21-22 season was when we gave the funds, and it was Brooks Minor Hockey, Duchess, and Bassano were included in that as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Now the scholarships, who can apply, or I've not seen a Bandit scholarship, or unless it goes to players that are within the organization. Help me with that.
So for scholarships, that could be players on the team, but that money still is available. We're still hasn't been awarded yet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Further questions? Greg, please.
Do we have any local kids in the area, even Southern Alberta, playing on the team?
We don't have anyone from the city of Brooks or the county of Newell. We do have Southern Alberta kids from Calgary area. Our coaching staff, our GM, our scouts, they look to bring the best players they can to the city, regardless of where they're from.
Thank you. Lynette, please.
Just a couple clarifying things. Did you say that the city gave you $50,000 last time?
So in 2019, we received $25,000 from the city, $25,000 from the county, and then there was a $50,000 that would be available if the event didn't break even. So we didn't receive that because the event had a surplus.
So you're asking for $50,000 from the county and the city this time?
Yes.
Okay. Pardon? Oh, okay. The other question was, you said transportation. You have to pay to get the teams here? Like, you actually have to provide the transportation?
Yes, that's correct. All of those team expenditures. For example, when we went to Estevan for the Centennial Cup last year, the host committee there paid for our busing to get out there, hotel, meals. So we would have to do the same for 9 teams. We did the math we broke it down the other day. There'd be 4 teams that could probably bus here from Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, but then we'd be looking at about 5 teams from out east that would need flights out here. So expenditures go up.
Okay, thank you. Any, Dan, please, and then Holly.
Yeah. So let's say we were to give you the 50,000, and you do turn a profit. Would it be out of whack to ask you to return the investment or our investment to you, so that we can decide where it's best suited for our county to spend that money?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for that, but certainly we don't want it to be perceived that we can't do this without, or that we want to be self-sufficient in hosting this event. Looking at what this is going to cost with the increased number of teams, I don't think I'm an optimistic person, but I don't think we'd be looking at the same surplus for this event that we had in 19, just with our expenditures going up. So I don't know if I have an answer for that today, but I can certainly come back to you.
Thank you. Holly?
Good morning. When I'm looking at your budget, your sponsorship line is $100,000. So you're asking the city and the county 50,000 each. So you're not, do you have other sponsorships in line, or you're not expecting to get anything other than that money?
No, the sponsorships would be from local businesses that wanted to support the event, which we had in 2019. That would be separate from the county and the city.
Thank you, Kelly. Further question?
Well, a question more to the point, to let you know that I support the Bandits and I love the caliber of hockey that it brings to the area, the notoriety that it brings, the recognition that it brings. And so I am prepared for a motion, Reeve Dirksen, if you are open to that.
I think I am, if I don't see any other questions, and we can still take other questions once there's a motion in place. So go ahead.
So my motion is that the County of Newell support the Brooks Bandits bid to host the Centennial Cup either in 24 or 25, offer a conditional grant agreement providing funding in the amount of $50,000 from Future Projects Fund if they are successful in being awarded the event, on the condition that the funding in the amount of $50,000 be returned to the County of Newell from profits in, if any, of the tournament.
Okay, thank you. Accept that motion. Are there further questions? Holly, do you have a question?
My typical question, where's the money coming from? What budget line?
Matt,
in
you
the
can
motion,
clarify that,
future
please. It's
projects.
clarified in the motion, but Matt, you can explain that maybe?
Yeah, from the Future Projects Fund, there's cash available to support that. And this would be very similar to the agreement we entered in with the, I think it was the Brooks Junior A Hockey Association is who the conditional grant agreement was with in 2019. If there's any profits, it comes back, but if you go, you need it to break even, it's there to break even.
Thanks, Matt. Kelly, please.
Just to support further to that motion, I do know that the awarding boards look at government support. So in the written documents, it will be stated that the County of Newell is in support of this organization and what they bring to the community. So I think it's very important that we support the Bandits.
Thank you. We have a motion, Neil.
When the $50,000 comes back, hopefully they make twice that, we're not bound just to put that back in the general revenue. We have to do some community, I'd like that attachment onto that.
I would propose that it go back into where it came from. And Matt, I would assume that makes sense.
Yeah, then it's available for future requests as well.
Thank you. Nathan, you've got a comment?
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to add as well with, as it was the case in 2019, any marketing of the event, any signage, we included the County of Newell logo and City of Brooks on the display. So that would be part of it as well with that recognition.
Thank you. Yeah, comment, Neil?
Can you throw in a bag of Bandits pins to go with our county pins?
We'll see what we can do.
Okay. Thank you. I think this is a significant venture and certainly support the Bandits in this. I mean, it's good for the region. If you look at the dynamics of this, it's huge. The fact that this is now a 25 game tournament, that's big for a period of time in the community here. And certainly the national recognition will be heightened with all of that as well. So I think it's excellent. Wish you well in that. And the fact that this is a community foundation, that's the organization of the team. We're with you. That's good. Any further questions? We're ready for the question. We can deal with this later as well. I don't want to tie up your time, but any further questions? I'm going to call the motion. All in favor of the motion as been presented, please indicate. There's no possibility for opposition, so we're with you all the way. And thank you for the presentation this morning, and go Bandits. Yeah, yeah. Council, we are on item number 10, agriculture services business and a funding request. Is Mr. Green coming in? Todd, are you coming down to join us?
You bet, I'll be right down.
Good morning, Mr. Green.
Good morning.
We are on item number 9, agriculture services business 9.1 of funding request from Foothills, Forage and Grazing Association. Go ahead, please.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. So you'll see from the background information that I submitted, as well as the RFD, the Foothills Forage and Grazing Association is looking to us for a sponsorship. We have had the opportunity to work with Foothills Forage and Grazing Associations many times in the past, but just kind of on one-off basis where they were hosting an event locally, and we would do things like, I think the one time we were up at the GEM Community Hall, we took supper for the group that was up there, and that's kind of where we've kind of hung our hat with Foothills Forage, is just kind of their one-off when they're in our area. We were happy to support the educational opportunities for our producers. So that's where we've been. Typically, we've been a little bit far east for their organization. They spend a little bit more time kind of towards the foothills, which is great for those producers. We just happen to be a little bit farther away than their typical audience. The Foothills Forage Grazing Association, good organization. They kind of look at the grassroots side of the business, some of the new and ever exciting things that are happening on the ground. They also support environmental farm plans, which we do as well. So not that we need them for that service, but we would never hold our producers back from working with them. And I generally believe that the work that applied research associations do is valuable, provincially and locally. And I think there's an argument that supporting them would be a benefit for our agriculture producers. The only tricky part is they've asked for a $5,000 sponsorship, which is a little more than we typically have been supporting applied research associations in the past. I did list kind of some of the other things that we have that we sponsor. So Farming Smarter, which is another applied research association. In the past few years, it's been $1,000, but historically we've been up to $2,500 to help them out with their annual conference. The Farm Safety Center, we just are setting the money right now for $4,000, but we do budget for $5,000 because that's typically their ask. Alberta Farm Animal Care is another great organization that we are a member of. So that's $500. Alberta Invasive Species Council is $2,000. Sorry, that was my bad, not $2,500. And then Ag for Life is another great organization that we sponsor for $1,500. So I think we send money to a lot of great organizations that help locally, and this is another one. So their ask is for $5,000. I just wasn't sure if that's where we wanted to be.
Thank you. Other questions? Neil, please.
What do we get for 5,000? Like, is there 5,000 worth of goods there?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I think there's a lot of great information and resources that Foothills Forage puts together. I don't know that it's not all available already. I think one of the things that maybe would be a benefit is if they were able to utilize our donation to spend more time here and work on projects that might benefit us more. So, you know, some things that would be a bigger benefit for irrigation producers, you know, cattle producers, I think primarily in the forage kind of world. Some of the regenerative agriculture practices, I know they've been pushing that a little bit, using legumes to build nutrients in the soil and build that soil profile back up, that kind of thing.
There's a mountain of that out there right now. I can name you 10 people that are into all that kind of stuff without these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where these applied research organizations come in, is they look for the next, you know, biggest and best thing, or some of the side things that aren't being utilized as much, and try to ground truth it to different areas.
Thank you. Holly, please.
I would be in support of it in that, although Farming Smarter is in our area, if you look at Farming Smarter, they are pretty much focusing on technology and crops, where Foothills Forage is on the other side that does the cattle and the land, and we kind of need a balance for all our producers. So I see benefits, but I would definitely say, I think condition there has to be events closer to us, because going to Longview or High River is a fair drive for a day's event. It'd be nice to have a few more events on this side of our coastal county.
Thank you. Lynette, do you have a question?
Could we possibly say we will only give you this much money until you start doing more things in our area, and then we would be happy to support you more? I don't know.
Okay. Todd, you gotta know.
Well, we can say a lot of things. I don't know. Their staff members are very open to a lot of great things. We just haven't worked with them much in the past, so we haven't asked a lot. I think there would be benefit in that, just because we have a different, I guess, maybe climate on this side of the Palliser Triangle line than maybe on the other side where they get more rain. So I think that would be valuable to put a, what do you call it, like an anchor to the money, hold it closer to home.
Caveat. All right. Further questions? I missed somebody else with a question? Neil?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get this. We already have the experimental ranch out by Arno's. I don't get what they're selling. Like a short course on rate of gain, or what is it?
And maybe others have more experience with Foothills Forage and grazing, but I think they're more into the forage development, forage use on lands, grazing practices, trying to extend the grazing season out as long as they can. So things like swath grazing, bale grazing, stockpiling native grasslands, trying to increase the amount of livestock you might be, or carrying capacity, pardon me, of land, things along that line.
Holly, please.
So, for example, we've hosted grazing schools, had Jim Garish come from the States. They've done a couple levels of that. They did it both at Longview, they've done it at GEM. It's just kind of a place for some of the knowledge and people to gather who have the similar interests. It just doesn't really exist in our county really easily. I mean, Blaine's gone to a number of things there. He's a member because he feels that's the closest place to have community for forage, for cattle. I can't speak cow-calf producers and forage.
Just to that question, my first exposure to the work they did was quite a few years ago. They brought in a Argentinian scientist, Dr. Annabel Portamingo, came to the Heritage in Brooks here for a one-day presentation available to producers. That was, I don't know how many years ago, but that would just add to that. Right, please.
Do we know if all the other municipalities are also engaged at the $5,000 level? We don't know that. So Similar to Farm Safety Center then and all the rest on our list, they accept our donation or our gift to support their operations. So to my way of thinking, I would like to make a motion that we give the Foothills Forage and Grazing Association a $2,000 in line with possibly our budget and our dollar value in other organizations.
Okay, I'll accept that motion. Greg, you've got a question or comment?
Yeah, I'm in positive with that motion of $2,000. In what Holly said, the producers, if they find value in this organization, they do become members of it. So, you know, in saying that, if the producers are finding value in our area for them, then they'll be a member. I don't think we need to support them much more than what Kelly has mentioned. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Dan, please.
Is this a one-year thing? Okay.
Okay, ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Todd. Item number 10.1. Administrative business, planning and development report. Welcome, Maria.
Hi. So for January's report, I did a 2022 in review. So we base our projects in planning and development right now on a SWOT analysis that was completed in 2020. So ISL looked at all of our documents and all of our procedures and processes, and they gave us a report on our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So one of those was the land use bylaw, which we knocked off in 2021, 2022, I suppose. And now our MDP rewrite is, well, we started in 2022, and hopefully that will be finished early stages of 2023. So I guess stemming along from that, we gained some experience in the Land and Property Rights Tribunal appeal process, which I think was a really, we learned a lot for sure. And we're looking forward to working with our municipal neighbors into 2023. We worked with ISL in the city of Brooks to do a growth study. So a lot of the data manipulation was completed in 2022, and we hope to have that report completed really soon. We did, as a department, we did a lot of training. So lean training, which has been very great for our department, trying to find efficiencies and reducing duplications. And there was a lot that we could work on, and we did work on in 2022. We have Zachary with us. He started in 2022, and he's been a great addition to our team. And we also now hired a new admin who's going to prove extremely valuable going into 2023. So subdivisions are kind of, you know, typical, I guess. We received a total of 16 subdivision applications. So that was quite a bit more than 2021, but kind of an average. What else do I want to tell you? We, development permits as well. We have, you know, seen an increase over the years, but nothing substantial. We, in 2022, saw 2 industrial scale solar facilities, power generation and data center. New businesses include the straw matting manufacturing business, and I believe I see that they have started construction. A new outdoor market, the equine assisted learning business, and a new church just outside of Brooks. And then we also saw the expansion of an agricultural dealership, a campground, and a storage facility. So construction permits. So as our municipality is an accredited municipality, we run our construction permits and our safety code permitting under a quality management plan. So the plan that we had was the same one that we had when we first started our accreditation. So in 2022, I reviewed the quality management plan and the current practices. I worked with Park Enterprises to see what they were doing, what their inspections were like, and how that could be improved. So we updated that plan based on a new template put out by the Alberta Safety Codes Council. We also had an external audit where there were 2 inspectors that came from Alberta Safety Codes, and they reviewed a lot of our permits and commented on those. And there were comments and room for improvement, but I think overall we're doing pretty good. And then we also put out a request for proposal for our safety codes inspection services, and Park Enterprises was awarded the contract. We also completed a few land use amendments. 2 of those amendments were to change zoning to allow for subdivision. 2 amendments were in the Ag General District in association with the appeal of the land use bylaw, and the remainder were for business development. So we had a pretty busy 2022, and we're excited to see what 2023 has. Thanks.
Thank you for that presentation, Maria. Any questions, comments? Holly, please.
I just wanted to move acceptance of the planning and development report.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, Maria. Let's move to item number 10.2, policy review of policy 010-23 reserve land. Welcome, Zachary. Go ahead.
Thank you. So today we're presenting the policy for reserve land. It is to supersede the policy, the municipal reserve dedication policy, number 2016 PAD-57. And the revised policy expands upon the narrow scope of the current by going beyond only outlining the procedures for taking money in place of municipal reserve land. And the recommendation is that council adopts the policy as presented. And the previous council direction was the previous policy, since its adoption was used to determine the value of land for the purpose of municipal reserve, when money was required instead of land. And desire has been expressed recently to review the values of the policy to better reflect the current market rates and establish a procedure for periodic review of those values. So discussion, many of the policies concerning or concerned or in the reserve land policy are in the MGA. So those relevant sections are listed, and desired outcomes are for clear direction for staff on when to take reserves as land or as money, have a consistent methodology for determining the value of land, and have tools to resolve any issues of conflicting land uses of reserves. And all guiding principles apply in this case. Response options are option 1, the council approves the policy as presented. 2, the council suggests minor amendments to the policy for subsequent approval. Or that 3, council directs staff to significantly alter the policy for reconsideration in the future. So the preferred strategy here is for option 1, because of the review that was done only last week at the committee of the whole meeting of the same policy and subsequent reviews by administration. This policy provides administration direction for recommendations to be presented to MPC for subdivision applications Policy allows for some flexibility should the need arise, but outlines clearly that council's preferred strategy for dealing with municipal reserve is to take money in place of land for most applications.
Thank you. Are there any questions or direction for council? Dan, please.
I like this policy change. I like that it offers a way to make a correction for some of those municipal reserves that are token reserves that are no good for anything. So it'll be nice to see if someone's going to give up land as municipal reserve, that it'll actually be land that can be used properly. So I really like seeing this change. And with that, I'll move that we take option number 1. I can't find it.
Yeah, we approve the policy as presented.
Policy, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Holly, please.
I just had a question under 4.1 acquisition. The way 4.1 reads, it looks as if you could have a choice, depending how you read it, to give money or land. I know it isn't a choice, but the way it's worded, I think someone could misinterpret that. So I don't know if it goes back to the MJ, how it's worded there, but I just wanted to be clarified for wording or that. I'm only one who thinks it could be read both ways.
The way I'm reading it now, Holly, is that saying as required by the subdivision authority. So yes, there is the option, but it's the subdivision authority that decides what option is the one that is required.
The other way you could read it is just it's required that you do either one of those. So that's the way it could be read either way. So I'm just putting out there for discussion.
Maria, please, clarification. Yeah.
So council has the ability to take up to 10%. So this is saying that municipal reserve will be provided as per this policy. There's no option to not deal with it, I suppose.
Thank you. That provides clarity. Any further questions or comments? Are ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Zachary and Maria. Item number 10.3, appointment to County of Newell Library Board, Division 3, term extension. Mariana, do you?
I think it's self-explanatory.
Yeah, it is.
The only thing we just need a motion. She's agreed to serve another term. We need a motion approving that. And the only other thing I want to mention is Division 8 still is vacant. So if you know someone in Division 8 that wants to serve on the library board.
Thank you. Holly, please.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Julie Musgrove to the County of Newell Library Board representing Division 3.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Item number 10.4, motion to lift from the table the Rocky View Solar Governance Coalition. A motion to lift that from the table. Greg, please, all in favor, please indicate. It's carried. Thank you. Matt, do you want to take us through this, please?
I can speak to it in Lane's absence as he's headed this way potentially. This was tabled last meeting. We had received some of the attachments at the last minute, so it wasn't really fair for council to make a decision at that time. So really, we're looking for guidance whether council would like to join forces with Rocky View County and other municipalities in support of the RMA resolution, which was passed at fall session, looking at some of these issues on approval. So getting a nod from AUC to our land use planning, whether it's our land use bylaw, MDP, what have you, and having them take a look at the reclamation piece, which we heard a little bit about today from Mr. Bennett. I will advise council, administration has also reached out to representatives from the AUC, which we'll have here at a future meeting to give their side of the story. And Jeff might have some additional details on that because it was Maria and himself who touched base with them.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. Lane, myself, and Maria had the opportunity yesterday to meet with a couple members of the Alberta Utility Commission. One was their kind of communications media person, and the other one was the director of the facilities branch, I believe. Wayne McKenzie was his name. Great conversation. I'm not sure that we found out a lot more than we already knew. We did find out how municipalities can be involved. They did make mention of some current proceedings that were taking place that are surrounding that reclamation aspect and how that municipality got involved at the AUC level. That decision, I think, as Daryl today mentioned, at Foothills hasn't been rendered by the commission yet, so it's still to be told how the Foothills engagement and involvement and policy within their land use bylaw and land use framework that was identified to the commission is going to be handled and decided upon. The Utility Commission is in an interesting place. They're given all the information, and that information comes from federal, provincial, municipal regulatory framework. It goes to speak to lands that are good for renewable development, lands that are not so good, and they have to deal with a lot of conflicting policies and conflicting viewpoints, and their decision at the AUC level is to make a decision based on the facts that they have presented before them, and really their decision is based on what's in the best interest of the public, what's in the best interest of the greater good, and that's the decision that they're forced to make. I think we heard that at the municipal level, ways we can get involved if we see it is including strong policy, strong viewpoints in some of our framework, be that our land use bylaw, our municipal development plan, somewhere that we can become engaged and involved with the Utility Commission process for approval and provide that information. And again, that all rolls back to what our council's viewpoint is on some of these things. I think that's a lot of the information we learned from the AUC yesterday. They did say they would be willing to come to a future council meeting and sit at a delegation if that was council's desire to help answer some of these questions. I don't know, Lane, if you have anything to add, or Maria was in it as well.
Lane, have you got anything to add?
Yeah. Just maybe one or two other things that came up during the discussion. They said that they do certainly lean quite heavily on recommendations from Alberta Environment when it comes to the locations. Of course, Alberta Environment, their focus is on protecting the natural environment, so they will highly recommend that the projects be placed on disturbed lands as opposed to natural grass areas. Same thing when it comes to the reclamation. They don't have authority to obligate companies to come up with a reclamation fund. So the case that was discussed by Daryl earlier is going to be a good indication as to whether or not they're prepared to take that into consideration. In addition to the conversation with AUC, we've also had contact with the Canadian Renewable Energy Association, and their representative is prepared to come and meet with council and provide information from the perspective of the renewable energy sector and the companies that belong to that association as well. So a couple of different opportunities for you to gather some more information on this.
Thank you. Neil, you've got a question?
Those are really good, and the guy this morning was excellent too. Before we move ahead with joining any coalition or sponsoring any of this, I'd like to hear AUC and the Renewables organization, so we get both sides of the coin before we jump in and into something like this. So I'd like to leave it tabled.
You'd like to table this again?
Until AUC gets here and the Renewable, so we get both sides of the coin. We're only voting on it one thing, and that wasn't a very negative conversation this morning with the guy from the table.
No, I would agree, and I don't think this group is negative either. I think it's a matter of making sure that we have the information that we need and that we are working, I think, with other groups on a matter that is clearly will be influenced by political considerations, and the people that are in charge of the landscape, I think, have the most to deal with this. So I think in any case, we'll need more information. But Maria, you had your hand up for a comment, please.
One thing we spoke about with AUC was the idea of standing. So landowners have the ability to have standing, which means that any of their legal fees can be paid for through the AUC process. A municipality doesn't have that ability to get standing. So if a municipality wants to be involved in the hearing process, we either have to do it via just administration or hire our own legal representative. So one idea that was kind of discussed was AUC doesn't have to accept county policy, but if the county had policy, that is something that people with standing could use to request different things from solar companies, whether that be siting, so different setbacks based on a solar project. Right now in an agricultural district, we have setbacks that are mostly for, ag buildings or dwellings, but there could be the opportunity to put something specific for solar, and then that could be used at an AUC level potentially.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification, because you weren't making a motion to table, were you, Neil?
I will make that motion.
Yeah, you can. But yeah, I just for clear, because if you make a motion to table, we vote on it immediately. And you didn't make that motion, did you? To table it?
Not till you're ready for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Kelly, please.
So at the last meeting, I had some fears and some anxiety over joining, and since then, after hearing from Mr. Bennett this morning, and also the input that we received, or the information that we received from RMA President Paul at our Foothills Little Bow meeting a couple weeks ago, I'm in favor of moving forward on this. So I just wanted to let that out there, that I can be educated.
Okay, thank you. I'll just express my opinion too. I think this is a good initiative to be part of. I think they're going to be at the table talking about the concerns that our ratepayers have as well, and clearly not in an effort to reduce or stand in the way of further development of various renewable energy projects, but simply to do it from a perspective of full information. I think any information that comes to us over the next weeks and months can be useful to us if we're at the table. This provides us the opportunity to be part of that group that is going to be discussing this with other municipalities. So I don't think it stands in the way of any, all of the further representation that we have, I think will be useful to us, as we've already seen in the last few weeks. So I would it's at council's discretion, obviously, but I think to move ahead with this sooner than later would be a reasonable thing. none of the information that comes to us gets in the way of input at that level to say, where do we want this to go? Otherwise, we have no input in that group without being there. So what's your wish? Go ahead, Ellen.
I couldn't agree more, and I am ready to make a motion for option number 1, to submit an affirmative response expressing interest in participating with Rocky View County and others in a joint advocacy effort. I personally think that there's so many unknowns that it is a $10,000 commitment, but I think it's money well spent just to see that we work together with like-minded municipalities. And again, this is such an unknown field, and especially with reclamation issues, I'm in favor of this one.
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
Okay, I was in favor of option 1. But option 1 does not include a dollar value. So I would like to ask the mover if she is requesting that be added to the motion, because if that's the case, I would have to oppose the motion. I'm in favor of option 1 as it reads.
Matt, you've got some clarification for us, please.
Yeah, so just to be clear, in the request received from Rocky View, their wording is, we have allocated up to $10,000 towards the hiring of the consultant and hope that you'll consider a similar allocation if you are interested in joining our advocacy coalition. So I think the dollars are tied to participation, or participation's tied to the dollars.
Yeah, I think that's right. I did have an informal discussion with the Rocky View Councillor in Grand Prairie last week, and clearly they're not in opposition to further development. They just feel that it's just due diligence to make sure that they're well informed and have done due diligence with regard to the future impact of how this moves forward. And I think I would say that all of the input we've had to date would lead me to say that's good due diligence. Lynette, please.
All of our past experience is with oil and gas, and the renewable energy doesn't fall under the same classifications and stuff as far as governance and whatnot. So I think learning more would definitely help us to know where we would be standing in 10 years.
Thank you. I think one of the other things they recognize in their recommendation or their support is the fact that we are the baseline keepers of the landscape, and we're the group that is finally most interested in what our landscape looks like into the future. And I think we need to take that seriously. So this is an opportunity in support of that. But we have a motion on the floor. Any further comments or questions? Ed Ellen.
In this case, I would like to add the $10,000 commitment.
Yeah, and I think as per Matt's explanation, it's there because they're asking for that similar commitment up to $10,000 with the other participating groups. So it's simply a matter of, yeah, it's in there. Okay. Any further questions or comments? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Opposed? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Holly, go ahead. You've got a question, comment.
Well, just in terms of what you said, Maria, about intervener and the costs associated, we have the lunar solar project which is sent out, and you have to, I think written submissions are due by February 7th. So would you be recommending that, given what we're doing at this point, there's no reason to be involved in that?
Go ahead, Maria, please.
Right now, our process is to register as an intervener. As part of that, the administration puts in a reason why we want to be an intervener. And so in that little paragraph, I say that we would like the AUC to review and consider policy in the MDP and the land use bylaw, including setbacks. So that's just part of showing the companies that we do have interest and we want to keep informed. If council wish to go further, then that also leaves that opportunity open to participate in a public or in a hearing process if that's the route that council would want to go.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none and being 8 minutes after 12, I'm going to suggest we break for lunch. Thank you for your representation this morning. We'll call this meeting back to order. And we are on item number 10.6.1, motion of acceptance for councillor payment sheets. Any adjustments that need to be made that are not listed? If you don't see anything, the motion to approve would be in order. Ellen? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Item number 10.7, requests for functions of council. We have a few. I know Kelly has one from attendance on Tuesday at the Habitat for Humanity. And one more. Go ahead. What other one?
Reeve Dirksen, I did provide a report on the Habitat for Humanity in the package. And I'm happy to be able to support you in whenever you can't attend, so thank you for the opportunity. I also have another one. I would like to complete my EOEP course listing. I have 2 courses left, and as you know, they only come up occasionally, and my last 2 are coming up this spring. Beginning in February and finishing in May. They are municipal corporate planning and finance, and the second one is service delivery. They're both being offered online at $295 a course. And of course, that expense would go towards my expense sheet. So I request the opportunity to attend these 8-hour courses over 4 nights each. So that would be 8 nights, 8 evenings that I have to commit to these courses. If you would, please.
Okay, all in favor of approving the request? Go ahead.
Can I add to that anybody else who needs to get some more of their courses completed, that we just make that a function of council?
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So we are going to be bringing the compensation policy to council shortly, whatever that means, hopefully soon. But I think, the EOEP courses should just be covered. We budget for convention, seminars, courses for counselors, and that's one of the things I'm going to propose. We just roll in there and you get it done at your pleasure, and if you don't do it, you don't do it, but you can do it without the rigmarole.
Okay, thank you. We have the request for Kelly specifically, but a motion from Lynette that they simply be covered.
Yeah.
The yeah. Okay, we know what we're talking about. Are covered. All in favor of that motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Holly, and then Neil.
I believe on February 16th, there's one they mentioned. It's the EIEO case course on asset management. I believe, is that correct? And it's a free one. So if you want to do it, like to do it in person, it's a 1-day session in Lethbridge. I thought it was. Am I wrong?
So you're requesting to attend?
I was noted for information because I thought it was one of those courses,
Oh, okay.
but maybe it is not. Matt's going to check and tell me if I'm right or wrong.
We're all good. Neil?
Yeah, it's time to bring up the AIPA function of council. It's the irrigation districts annual convention, which is very good. I've been to 20 of them. To get a background, I think it would be great for our council to show support, especially for anybody that doesn't have that much background with what the district really does. We've all got it. It's February 6th, 7th, or what, 8th in Calgary. Comments, whatever you think. I think it'd be excellent to show support to our district. Particularly, you'll get a hint of what irrigation actually does for all of southern Alberta, because every district will be there.
Are you making a motion that AIPA, or it's not AIPA, but
I make a motion that we let whatever councillors want to go. Like, it's next week, so we got to get on this right away as a function of council.
Okay. Any questions about that? Holly, please.
Because kind of a specific area, perhaps it should be pick how many councillors we want to go instead of leaving an open invitation.
There's no sense me going because I know what they're going to say. I could rate the whole conference. But I'm talking about anybody that, just to bring our awareness up on what the district actually does. Like, they're a huge player in this district.
Is anyone interested in going?
I'll have to look at the dates, and we've talked about that. I missed it, but I'd be interested.
February 6th to 8th. Starts Monday night, all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry, maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. AIB? Oh, no, that's in Warsaw. Okay.
It's on your WhatsApp.
Sorry? I just need to get to the right website. Does anybody know what the cost of the convention is?
It's on your phone.
It's under WhatsApp. Neil posted it there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I think it's $275 for the whole thing. That's banquet and 2 days. There's a few technical sessions, which you won't be interested in, that apply to, engineers and stuff like that for the districts. But all in all, it's a really good trade show, and
I like that it's local. It's right in Calgary.
a lot of chance to network, and yeah, I'm very pro irrigation, so I'm pushing this one.
Okay, and you're suggesting it open to anyone who wants to go?
I'd have a hard time telling anybody not to go.
Yeah. Ready for the question? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Neil. Any other functions of council?
Did we get that asset management figured out? How is it just through RMA? But I would make the motion that if anybody that wants to go to that one, I think that would be a good one for us to learn as well.
Okay, that's the asset management meeting or seminar in Lethbridge, right? All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Any others? Holly, please.
I'm wondering if somebody can enlighten me in the difference between the EOP courses and the elected officials that RMA does, what the difference is? Does it, everybody know?
I'm just going to guess here, so just take this for what it's worth. The EOEP courses are actually part of an overarching program. At the end of completing all the courses, you'll get a certificate. The asset management, I'm not seeing that it is part of that official EOEP portfolio of courses.
Dan, please.
I found a conference that I wanted to, or a course that I wanted to go to, sorry. But I had a question because I know I made the motion that we could have up to 2 courses covered per year. But if this was like a $200 course, I would have just done it. But this is it's a bit more expensive. And after I Googled how far Jasper was for a drive, I'm like, okay, that changes things a lot. But anyway, my question was more about what do we feel was, and what's going to happen with the policy when it comes back and changes. We'll answer that question too. What do we feel like? Are we saying for 2 courses? And then specifically with this one up in Jasper that we got in the email, I got details. It's 2-day in-person municipal leadership workshop by Tim Duhamel. It is April 17th and 18th, and it's $1,200 for a course. So I'm like, yeah, that's a bit pricey, but then that's why I thought I wanted to get a little bit more clarification on what we're thinking of for those 2 courses that we said we're doing, because that one's high up there. Any thoughts on what we were deciding?
Okay, where does that, I mean, what are the costs of most of these courses that we take are just a few $100s, right? Matt?
We budget about $7,500 per counselor to cover, going to RMA, whatever else might come up, kind of a thing. So this is a good conversation because it'll feed into what we bring you as a first draft for an updated counselor compensation policy. But I do think it's valuable to get a framework that gives each counselor a little bit of freedom within reason to pursue the professional development opportunities. Tim's a pretty great presenter. He's been CAO, town of Bruderheim, worked at Strathcona County as their director of corporate services. So I'd support Tim's work. He runs Bloom Center for Municipal Excellence. It is a little pricier, but you're going to Jasper, and I've never known a national park to be cheap. But so yeah, I'm kind of interested to hear council's viewpoints on what would be acceptable for courses, conventions, that kind of a thing. Because you could spend your entire year bouncing around between these things if you wanted to.
Okay, thanks. Neil, first, and then
would like an annual retreat instead every 4 years, instead of spending $1,200 on 3 counselors, bringing some of these people to a retreat be something to look at? I know EID used to have an annual retreat every year with that kind of input coming in, and it worked out pretty good. It saved counselors spreading all over heck. If they have a topic, bring it to the retreat.
Interesting idea and a good one to consider. Thanks for that. Basically for our consideration, right? Thanks. Holly?
My thinking was just, we have to decide if we're looking to build our skill base and that people are going to different things, so everyone expands their skill base in a particular area, or we're all generalists. But I mean, as you said, there's courses for everything and any kind of a strategy of what we're looking at doing, or otherwise, yeah, we can go to school all year.
Both good considerations. Is this something that we can consider more in association with the compensation agreement, and because it also fits into, what do you want to call it, professional development or whatever? Yeah. So these are things that we'll consider again. In the meantime, Dan, you're asking for a specific answer to a specific.
Wasn't really. Like I said, I looked at it then, decided how far it was and okay. Whatnot. It's like, yeah, that's pretty pricey. Yeah. I'd love to take this course, but more just to spur the conversation as to what we intend and what we're looking forward to. So, okay. Yeah, no questions to be asked, no answered.
Okay, thanks. One that we haven't considered here is this Community Planning Association of Alberta 2023 conference. Jeff, you've got some input on that?
Yeah, just put this before council. Community Planning Association of Alberta. I am on the board of directors. I'm helping organize this year's conference. Last year was the first in-person conference I attended. Councillor Chrisman and Councillor Short also attended. It is in Nisku, just down the road from the hotel that last year's conference was held at. There's an RFD in front of everybody that talks about, where it is. Some of the keynote speaker, Brownlee, will be doing the pre-conference education session that's included. And there's also some information on pricing. Council did approve in the budget to be a sponsor of the event, which does provide some incentive registrations, a free registration information to the conference as well as the education session. So there's some pricing in front of everybody there to let everybody know what costs could look like depending on number of counselors. I think in the past it's typically been 2, but again, last year was my first kick at the cat as well. What else? I just put up on the screen here. This is a list of member municipalities of the CPAA, Community Planning Association of Alberta. Their goal is to increase awareness and increase communications around community planning, more specifically in smaller urban and rural communities. County of Lethbridge, Cypress County are very big supporters. Cypress County also has an admin member on the board of directors of CPAA. So just putting this out there for consideration and comments, and willing to answer any questions.
Kelly, please. Thanks, Jeff.
I just wanted to remind you of my report back to council a year ago. The topics were relevant, and it was a very good course. And thank you, Jeff, for joining the board and representing the County of Newell at a professional level. I would like to suggest that we limit our participation, maybe 2, in line with with the agreement of bringing information back to council. So I encourage members that have not gone before to give it a go. One caveat, though. Just know that Jeff does not pack hair products, so take your own. I know this for a fact.
But I will drive, so.
Okay, was that a motion to support 2 councillors to attend this conference?
Absolutely.
All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. It's May 1 to 3. 1 to 3. Go ahead, Holly.
I just wondered if it was, if it kind of matched with Adina and Amanda going, given all their work with the housing and the Center Health Project. That was actually, I haven't been there, but reading it, is that a good match?
Jeff, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment. I mean, the agenda is not quite complete. The agenda so far is looking to be very interesting. We've got lots of presentations. We've got a panel discussion. Our keynote speaker is the host of a morning podcast in Edmonton that's quite popular and politically charged. So I think what we try to do is we try to cater to the smaller community, the rural inspiration. We do have urban people as well come. The cross section of delegates is, I would say, probably almost 50% municipal councils, and then probably maybe 30 to 35 administration, and then that 10 to 15% of private industry. We try to have a host of good cross section of topics that can cater to everybody, some concurrent sessions. And I think the education session that Alethea with Brownlee is going to throw together will be very informative for everybody, maybe not specifically housing related, but I think it would be great for anyone.
Okay, thanks. Dan?
If it's similar to last year's, there was a fair amount of economic development stuff in there. There was a lot of planning, and it was very informative. I think it spreads out across a lot of areas, but I did find it was fairly economic development oriented last year.
Okay, thank you. We have a little time on this, so do we want to decide today who goes? Holly made the suggestion that Adina and Amanda potentially go. I'm flexible. Do you both interested in able?
I would be.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested in going.
Okay. So I think that's good. Appreciate that. Yeah. And if something comes up for either of you, we'll have someone else attend. Lynette, please.
Well, I'll make that motion to have them go, but I'd also like to circle back around to something else. So.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Go ahead.
The EOEP courses are about $400 each course. So, yeah, Ariane, for each course. So that's $800. Like, we've already decided that a person could go to 2 of those in a year. So that's $800. So Dan's course is not atrociously over that amount. Just
right, and I think it's good context for the discussion we'll have later when we come forward with the compensation agreement. Thank you. Anything else under this item or functions of council? I don't think I can. Okay, in that case, we'll carry on to item number 11, committee reports. Okay, we have the, how do you want to do this? Kelly, do you have anything to add to the committee report, the community justice, or?
Nothing to add to that one. I am on the list for Grasslands FCSS, if you would like that now.
Sure, that'd be good.
Okay, we had, I'll back up. I did miss the November meeting. And in the November meeting, they did committees. And so during my orientation last evening at our meeting, they assigned me Seniors Outreach as a committee. So I am on the committee list now. Some dates to be aware of coming up. Junior Citizen of the Year Awards will be April 14th. And you'll see more as we get closer to the date, but I'm just giving you a heads up. There's another big event that FCSS sponsors, and it's back after some delays, and that is coming up on June 2nd, where Expo honoring community dinner, and I believe it's at Castles Hall this year where the county will be honored. So please mark June 2nd on your calendars, and more details will come out. We have sent in an application to Canada Summer Jobs for summer employment, waiting for approval on that as well. And then I also sent you out this morning, because the meeting was just last night, but I'll refer to my report now. Brooks Toy Lending Library, I sent an attachment. They're having a fundraiser, so look for that. Coming up February 22nd is National Anti-Bullying Day, so if you're going somewhere on February 22nd, be sure to wear pink, if you would, please. And in my report, I outlined the Alberta government is helping local food banks and organizations put nutritious meals on tables. They're committing, providing $20 million in funding over 2 years. And $5 million each will be distributed to food banks directly through FCSS Association, $3 million to established food banks in December 2022 to purchase and transport food and help pay for the frontline staff. And finally, $2 million to eligible civil society organizations through the Food Security Grant. And the final $5 million each will be used to support donation matching campaigns to encourage more Albertans to donate to their local food banks. So I just wanted to raise awareness of the food bank and what the province is doing for them. FCSS cannot support directly the food bank, but we are involved at a governance level. And obviously the Alberta government's on board as well. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to suggest that there's one item in here I'm going to suggest we take in camera. It's referred to here, but it doesn't have to be dealt with here. It's just an in-camera discussion. So we'll add that to the in-camera session. That's fine. Thank you, Kelly. Holly, questions?
Yes, question for Kelly on the Citizen of the Year award. Years past, before COVID, they had banquets. I don't believe the last number of years they had. So are they planning on having a full celebration this year?
That's my understanding. Past members that were not, that received, but virtually basically will be recognized. So kind of drawing them in. So, but yes, it will be a full gala celebration at the Heritage. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for the report, Kelly. I think all of our other presentations are covered here in terms of committee reports, other than Silver Sage AGM. Greg, please.
Thanks, Arnold. Yeah, last night the Silver Sage had their AGM, and I attended that. Just a couple things to note with everybody. They did a full-scale board change last year, about a year ago, and the board now, after they've been in running for a year. They're doing a very good job. The Silver Sage is probably in one of the best shapes it has been in. And as far as getting together or getting along together, they're looking in really good shape. A couple of things that they have taken care of, and I was involved a little bit with it along with Joel Goodenough from the city. They did a bylaw, reviewed all the bylaws and did a bylaw update, which was great because that needed to be done. And the ag board in Alberta, I can't remember what the acronym is, but anyway, they mandated that the Silver Sage do look at reviewing their bylaws and maybe making some changes and things to improve things, and they've done that, so that's really good. A couple big things is that Ken Newell is still the chair, will remain as chair, and Max Tietzen and Kristen Geiger will also remain on the board. So the board hasn't made any changes as far as people. So they have some funding from the county that's in a pool from the rec board from past years to do an outdoor arena for team roping and barrel racing and a number of events that are to be done outdoors rather than indoors. And it's right next door, right alongside of the existing building. So that's going to help out with them being able to bring in bigger events like the high school rodeos and things like that. We'll look at that. And then they are, in the future, they are looking at building a pretty good size hall or get-together place for their, when they have events there, this hall will be to put on their dances and their cabarets and a place, and they had mentioned that really the only places we can go are Castles and Tilly outside of Brooks, and this will be they're looking at maybe something pretty big up that can accommodate up to 1,000 people. So it's pretty lofty goals, but they feel there is a need for that. So just to let you know that, and that's basically what was done at the AGM.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions? Seeing none, Neil, you've got Newell Recycling. Anything to add or anything to? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. I was misguided.
I didn't have too much. I also had my library ones marked on there too because I haven't done an update from for quite a while. So Newell Recycling, there's a conference at the end of February, a recycling conference. So I will be going, as well as Ray Jessica from that council. That's about it for Newell Recycling. I don't know everything that goes on there yet. County of Newell Library Board, kind of status quo, not too much has changed in the most recent past, except that we now have an agreement signed between the two parties in Tilly for their library, between the seniors and who own the building that the library's in. So we're all good there now. Shortgrass, they were hiring a new systems and technical services manager. I think I had brought that up before, that they were using a company to go find them the person that they needed because they weren't getting any appropriate applications. So anyway, the company found them someone and the position has been filled, but our January meeting was canceled, so we haven't met that person yet. But there, that's my reports.
Thank you. Any questions, Neil?
Yeah, I just want to say that another hall for 1,000 people would be just fantastic for the area.
or 10 for 100, eh? Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm also going back to Greg's report. I'm wondering what your involvement will be going forward from County Council. Will you remain there? Because I remember it being a timely appointment, right?
Yeah, and basically the council, the board at the Silver Sage, after 3 months, it was their choice whether they wanted Joel and I to stay on. Now, there was a 3-month window there that the Alberta government said, you know, we need you guys on there. So, and then it's the discretion of the board for us to stay. I talked to Ken last night and they said, yeah, we really like your input. I like you being here. I mean, we're not voters. We're not really doing a lot, but we do make some suggestions with respect to governance and direction. So, and they take it as they need to. But yeah, I have been finding myself that the meetings have been conflicting with a couple other meetings that I have with other boards. So I'm going to see when they're changing their meeting nights to maybe accommodate more people, and I'll find out more if they still want me to go and whether I can go. If not, mention that I'll come back to council, see if there's someone else that wants to go on that board, if they still want us there.
Okay, thanks. Greg, Kelly, you've got a further comment?
Just a comment on that, it's not up to that board. It would be up to County Council whether we would want you to endure that, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I heard yay and nay, because we don't have funding regularly going out into that organization. You're on the rec board, so you're overseeing the funding there at one place. So I'm just wondering what you think about ongoing, because it's outside the realm of governance.
So yeah, basically it's up to our council whether you want me to still go. It's also their board that they want me there. So it is a two-pronged approach to this being on that board. To me, you know, looking at where they're at, I'm comfortable with where Ken and the current board are going with their governance and with the way the Silver Sage is being handled now is in a positive way. Would my opinion or influence on that board be needed anymore? I don't know that it would be, to tell you the truth. I could still go to the meetings, but I don't have a lot of interest in being on that board quite frankly, because it's not one of my interests, because I'm not a cowboy, but it is in my division. So that's why I'm there originally. Both Joel and I, we're as far from cowboys as can be. So, what's that? Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm not sure what you said, but.
I said that was probably best because you didn't actually have any interest. It was all just governance, which was.
Yeah, and that's right. So I think it's up to council to say, you know what, we're good. We don't want you to have you go there anymore. That's fine. I'd be totally fine with that. With the way the board is right now.
Thanks. You're good. You had a comment. Go ahead, please.
I go to the Ag Society meetings in my area. So that's your division. So if you have the time to go, you go. And I know we sent you initially, but that was only for the first little bit. So I think like going forward, it's kind of up to you to go whether you want or not as your division. That's my thinking anyway. I don't know.
Okay, thanks. Kelly?
And I concur with that, but I also wanted to thank you for your time and energy put in with the cowboys and having to put up with that smell and all. It's truly, your input was obviously very effective. So thank you for that. So I will make a motion that we end our involvement with the Silver Sage at this time.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Any further comments? I have one comment just to say that being that is an ag society in your division, I think it does, as Lynette indicated, make some sense for you to attend when you can without a lot of strings attached, really, which is okay as well. I would suggest that it's probably one of the busier venues that we have in terms of community type organizations. It's probably one of the busier venues in the region, short of some of the recreational facilities in the city. But from that perspective, there's some significance there to the county, I think. But it's up to council. We have a motion that we end our representation there. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Okay, opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, I think our committee reports are complete, right? With that, we move to post-agenda items, which there are none. And the information items that are presented there, any questions or need for discussion on any of those? And if not, then I would entertain a motion to move in camera. Holly, please. All in favor that we move to in camera? That's carried. Thank you.